Let's go. Good morning. We're learning as Chus for Shleim for Ilan Chaya Basarach and for Meir ben Cyril Peril. We continue with our bunch more explanations of our Mishnah, just to remind ourselves. On Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, on the Mishnah at the beginning of the Masechta, we had said, like we said, we divided up the Mishnah into four statements. The first statement was Hakol Sheichtin, which is a statement of L'chatchila, that anyone can shech L'chatchila. Then we say V'shchitas and Kshera, which is a statement of Bidi Yevet, that in extremis, when you have no choice, then you can shecht and the shchita is kosher, the shchita is valid, but ideally you shouldn't do it. Then we say chutz micheir shaita v'katan, which we say shem yikaltu ishchitasan, a cheir shaita v'katan, worried that they're going to ruin the shchita in one of three ways, as the Gemara explained. As we're gonna come across often in when we talk about shchita, there are essentially five requirements, the five ways that a person can mess up a shechita when they're doing it. So we said shia, which is by stopping in the middle. I think these are halacha l'maisha misinai. I'm not 100% sure. I think we'll come across it again. And then there is what did we say? There's chalada, which is where you stick the knife in between, and that causes it to, and then you pull it through, you puncture, you stab with the knife, and then you pull it out and cut one of the simanim. Then there is, if you do a chopping motion rather than a slicing motion, you push the knife down instead of going back and forth. Really, I keep saying back and forth because that's the English phrase, but it's really only forth. You're not supposed to go back and forth. It's supposed to be one cut. And then, so those are the ones that a cotton might do, and thereby ruin the shchita. And then there's also hagrama and ikur. Hagrama is where you don't cut it. Like I said, you have to cut two simanim, right? You have to cut both the windpipe and the food pipe. If you cut, but it has to be in a certain section of the neck. That means the windpipe and the food pipe go for a long way. You can't do it all the way by the chest, and you can't do it all the way by the mouth of the animal. It has to be in the neck, in a certain part of the neck. So if you do it outside of that area. And the final thing is with a knife that has a nick in it. We all know, right? You have to test the knives. The chalat, I think it's called, with a fingernail or with something. So if you use a knife that has a nick in it, it's also possible. So these last two we don't include when we're discussing a cotton, a cotton, because we said you could check it by having someone standing on them, but these you can look and see. If it's not cut in the right place, then you know that it's no good. And you look at the knife, and the knife doesn't have a nick in it, then it's also good. So it doesn't really need the person standing on it. It's independent of the chayr of the cotton. You can really check it in either of us. And again, this is just a disquisition because this will come up fairly often. So anyway, that's the third part of the Mishnah. And the last thing in the Mishnah, and that's the last part of the Mishnah that we have to say, that if it says v'kulon sheshachtu and other people are watching, the shechita is kosher. So we're going to have to see the problem with that going on the third part is that it says v'kulon sheshachtu. Why does it say v'kulon sheshachtu if it's referring to the immediately preceding section of the Mishnah? We just said cher shaita v'katan can't do it. Then we go back and we say that maybe there'll be makalkal the shechita. Then we say if someone's watching, they could do it. Then just say that. And the Gemara is going to be consistent in all. I think 6 tirutzim. We're going to keep saying that the fourth part can't be referring to the cher shaita v'katan, even though that's what it sounds like in the Mishnah. because of this technical problem. Okay, so we said so far one pshat. Who was that from? Remind myself. I think it was Rabba, right? Rabba bar Ula. We said it can even be talking about. It's talking about a chilik between a tamei who shechted al taris hakodesh, and then the second part is talking about we shechted kachim, and then we said the stam the din of a what do you call it? Of we talked about when we talked about chereshet v'katan, it meant chereshet v'katan v'zehu nothing else, meaning just the chereshet v'katan on Chullin. And again, we should just go back. The Tomei person did it with a long knife, right, so that he wouldn't be metamet. And then we went into a little bit about Tomo, that why did you need the long knife? How does the long knife help? Why doesn't it go through the long knife? And why is he metamet the long knife? So we said either it's talking about a Tomei sheretz or it's talking about a Tomei mace, but he uses a knife that's not makabel Tomo. And then we say, right. And if a tummy person shechts an animal that's kodesh, if he so he shouldn't do that. And if he does it, it's b'diavad, as long as he's sure that he didn't see it. Okay. Okay, so that was the first shot. Now we're moving on to our second shot. So we're on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, because the Gemara is going to go back later. The reason why I'm repeating this, after we say all these pshatim, the Gemara is going to go back and say why each one did not say like the other pshatim. So in this first pshat, we had a question that this was already said somewhere else. Right? The Mishnah already says that Tamei Bekachim, Hatam Megashim, it already says that Kol Psul and Sheshachtu is kosher b'tmein. And we said Hasam Ikar Hacha is Tafel, or Hacha is the Ikar and Hasam is the Tafel. Okay. Now we're up to the next pshat. Abayam, 6 lines up from the top. Abayam hachitani hakol shayichdin va'afilu kuti. Even a kusi is a person, as we're going to see in the Gemara. He's somebody who's a Gerei Arayis. There's this whole group of non-Jews that came into Eretz Yisrael, and they occupied the area where the Aseret Hashvatim had been. When they went into Galus, and they quickly found that the land was not hospitable to them, they were getting eaten alive. So they decided to convert and join the Jews. But their conversion was somewhat suspect. And they essentially became these tzedukim, where they weren't entirely tzedukim because they followed shchita, which is not per se. They followed some things, they didn't follow others. As we're going to see in this Gemara, they themselves were machmer on shchita. They would only eat food that was shachat, but as we're going to see in the Gemara, they were not makbid on lifnei iver. So they would feed someone else something that was not shechted properly. So he's saying hakol sheichten, even a kusi. A kusi are knowledgeable. As we're going to see this, you have to have a mumcha and you have to have a muchzik in order to shecht. They are considered to be valid sheichtim, but the medva mamurim k'shi yisrael al gabav. But that's only when someone is watching them. But if the yid is not there watching him as he does it, but rather he's going in and out, we were worried that he'll do something wrong and he won't say. But if the kusi, when he was yoytze v'nichnas, which we said is only b'diavad, that he could do it. what you could do is you could do a test. You could hand over the kusi, a kazayas from the basar that he just shechted, and ask him to eat it. If he eats it, we said they are themselves from on themselves. They're not from about lifnei either. They don't care if they cause you to eat non-kosher, but they themselves are, you can eat from their shechita. So that's the second din. B'di l'chatchila, you could do it if you yotze v'nichnas.
If
I'm
you're
sorry,
al
if
gaba.
you're standing omer al gaba. If b'diavad, you could do it with yotze v'nichnas if you ask them to eat some of it. Sounds like, but if they're not yotze v'nichnas, you can't do it at all. Doesn't really address that. So then the Gemara continues, the Mishnah continues, I should say, chutz micheir shoyte v'koten, dafilu diavad nami, lo shema yishu, shema yidrusu, v'shema yachlidu. The third part is like we were saying consistently through all the different pshatim, and it's a little bit strange, like why is it being brought up in the middle of this discussion about a kusi, and then you just talk about regular chulin with a Yiddish, I think it's talking about a Yiddish shayr shayt of a katan. Then we could, the last part of kulun sheshachtu. Ahai. What is that referring on? We were just talking about cher shayta. What does it say? Kulun sheshachtu, which is just say ve'im shachtu. And again, this is going to be in every teretz, this problem. Ela kusi. So it has to be talking about the kusi that we addressed before. Ha'amrit kisholem al gaba of shachat afilu chatchila. Why would we say then kulun sheshachtu? We say if he's aymed al gaba. We say if he's aymed al gaba, you can do it lechatchila. You don't need to do any tests. You don't have to. You can do it even lechatchila. And at the end, we're saying that but v'kul shachtu, which is a lashon of b'diavad. You could do it if he's standing on top. So Gemara kasha. This is a problem with Abaya. And just to keep in mind, like we're going to say, we're going to have at the end of the Gemara a discussion of why each one of the Tanoim did not say the other one's pshat. So it's helpful that it ends with kasha, because then that's an easy explanation of why the others did not agree with this pshat. Amar Rava. Rava says a variation of Abaya's pshat. Abaya said it's talking about a kusi. And we said a kusi that's Yosef and Nichnas could do it. Well, I'm saying kusi Aymed al Gabav you could do lechatchila, but Yosef and Nichnas then it's only b'diavad by asking him to taste the piece. Frek the Rav Yosef Nichnas chatchila loy. You're saying if it's Yosef and Nichnas you can't do it like that. This should be very familiar to you. This is from Avodah Zara, which you just learned like a short year ago or so. We talked about, if you remember, we spent a lot of time talking about Yayin Nesach. Someone left an Ovid Kechavim in his store with a bunch of barrels of wine, and if the Ovid Kechavim worried about if the Ovid Kechavim uses it, he'll have in mind for Avodah Zara. It says Yisrael Yoytze V'Nichnas Mutter. I'm sorry. Oh, that's just my feedback. So if a Ovid Kechavim you've left Ovid Kechavim in a store and a Yid is going in and out, it's mutter. It said Haminiach. So it sounds like it's okay. It's not b'diavad. When you're Yoytze V'Nichnas, I'm watching over a guy. So tomorrow, Hasamik Tani Miniach, Haminiach Tani. What's this? No, about what's your kasha, Rava? That it's mashma over there lechatchila. It says Hamin. It doesn't say miniach a person can do it. It says haminiach, someone who did it. But it's not mashma that he could do it lechatchila. So what's your kasha? Diavad. Elamei hacha. So Rava's kasha was not from that. It was from a different Mishnah. Ein hashomer tzoyrach liyos yoshev v'misham. A shomer who's watching a guy that's again with his yayin in the store. He doesn't, or in his storehouse. He doesn't have to sit and watch him. It says it's mutter as long as he's Yotze V'Nichnas. That lashon is a lashon of lechatchila. So how could Abaya understand that by a kusi, if he shechts, it's only b'diavad if it's Yotze V'Nichnas? It's only if it's Omer al Gabav that he watches the whole time. El Omer Rava Hakitani. Akol Sheichtin Vafilu Kusi. Every Geshecht, and again, it's like Abaye said, it's talking about a Kusi. The Medo Munch Yisrael Yoitzav Nichnas. That which was said that you could do it lechatchila is taka according to Rava when it's Yoitzav Nichnas, not Omer al Gabav. You don't have to be the whole time. Yoitzav Nichnas is sufficient. Avabo Matzah Sheshakat. But if he didn't, he wasn't even a Yaitzav Nichnas, but he came in, he found the Kusi had shechted it. Then, b'di'evet choytech kazayis basav and noisun loy. Then it's going to depend on b'di'evet. If he gives it to the guy, and the guy, the Kusi eats it, then he could eat it b'di'evet. Then according to Rava, the Mishnah continues, chutz m'cher shayte v'katan, da'afilu di'evet namila. The Cheretz Shaita B'Kata, and he can't do, because the Cheretz Shaita B'Kata can mess it up as he's doing it, and it will never know. Shemi Yishu, V'Shemi Yidrusu, V'Shemi Yachlidu. The same problems that we mentioned. V'Kulan Shesh Shachtu. Then the last part of Hai, Yilei Ma'Cheretz Shaita B'Kata, and Alakoi, V'Im Shachtu Mibayle. The same problem with the sequence of the Mishnah. It shouldn't have said V'Kulan Shesh Shachtu if it's going on the immediately preceding discussion of the Cheretz Shaita B'Kata. It should have said V'Im Shachtu. Ella Kusi. Elamai, it's going on the Kusi. And we're saying by a Kusi, if the Kulon Shachtu, if you say Min al Gabav. Ha'amra for Yaitzav and Nechnes Shachat L'Chatchila. But we had said that even if it's Yaitzav and Nechnes, he can be Shech L'Chatchila. So now why are we saying that if he's Min al Gabav, then you could do it with a lotion of B'di Evet. But we said you could do it even L'Chatchila with Yaitzav and Nechnes. You don't even need Min al Gabav. So Zokamar Kasha. This is again Shver on Rava's Pshat. Okay, so we have so far 3 pshat. The first pshat of Tameh and 2 variations of a Kusi. 4th pshat. Rav Ashi Amar Hachiktani. Hakol Sheichtin Bafilu Yisrael Mumar. Even Yisrael, who is suspect that he says he's known to like we're going to say to eat nevelis, and he shechted the animal, and even so. It's mutter l'chatchila to eat it. Mumma l'mai. We're talking about what kind of mumma? Lechel nevelis l'tiyaven. He's known that, if he passes by a McDonald's and he's hungry, he'll run in to take a bite. But if he has the opportunity, it's not lahachas. He's not doing it on purpose to stick an eye. He's just of weak moral character. So he gives in to his tightness. But he wants to do the right thing. If you have Yisrael Mumma who's Eichel Nevelis L'Tiyaven, he does it only out of temptation. Boidik sak, and you can check a sak, and you can check a knife, and you give it to him. Then you could eat a shchita, because we have no way of knowing. You have to check the sak, and without checking the sak, and he's going to try to do the thing, the thing that's right. But this guy is not going to be so careful. Well, the way Taisus says it is, he's not so careful that he just doesn't want to get caught. The Yid. But he thinks, listen, they don't look at me as a non-Jew because everyone makes mistakes. So I give in to my temptation, but they're not going to ask to check the knife. So therefore, if you don't check the knife before, he'll just let it slide. It's a little hard. It's a hard chedron, right? Because we're saying we trust him that he's not going to be dushia, he's not going to puncture it in the wrong way. So you don't need to mamish watch him. Because he'll try to do it the correct way, and we're assuming we're talking about someone who knows how to do it the correct way. There's no loss then, but I guess a knife that has a nick on it takes extra effort to do it correctly. So he'll think he'll be able to get away with it because they're never going to ask to check it. So therefore, you have to actually check it. But if you didn't check the knife and you gave it to him, you shouldn't check it. Then you can check it afterwards. Also But b'di'evet, if you if you if you gave him the knife before shechting it, without checking it, then you have to check it afterwards. The reason why this is not, let's see the Rashi. It doesn't say. This is a kind of yafa loy. Well, that's going to really be on the next part. Let's continue. So let's see the Rashi. Chutz mecher shoyt negafilu. Nimmt es sakina yafa loy the ikka kilkula achina. Shia drisha chalada lo yadi las durabu. V'dafka oichel et hayavan. Aval hachas afilu nimmt sakina yafa loy the muad lenavel bekavana b'yadayim. If he is a mummer on a veilus that he's doing it because he's an atheist, then we're worried that he's going to do it on purpose. So I believe the explanation, the hard part is to understand what difference does it make if if you check the knife afterwards as opposed to beforehand. L'chayra, it's just as good of a examination, but it seems like the chamo misakin, you have to do it, you have to check the sakin beforehand, because we're worried that once it's already shechted, everyone's relieved, you got the shechita done, it might be forgotten in the mix. You got to clean up the animal. But beforehand, if we make a rule beforehand, then it will be observed. So there really is no inherent reason why it has to be done before rather than afterwards, but there's a concern that you might end up not doing it. Okay, so that is the b'di'evet, l'chatchila and b'di'evet. L'chatchila, you check it beforehand for a kusi, b'di'evet, you check it afterwards for a kuti. And then the chayr shaita v'katan, it's not going to help to check the sakin, because you're still worried about he's going to make a mistake in the actual. He's not a bardas, so he's not going to be careful how he does it. The kulan sheshachdu ahai. What is kulan sheshachdu? The last part. Ilay machay shayte v'katan alakayim shachdu mi ba'ile. Again, the same problem. Ella al yisrael mumah. Sung about yisrael mumah. Either badak sakam v'noisen loy amashayche l'chatchila. If we check the sakam before it's mutal chitila. Ella delay badak. Elamai talking about who is not Baidik. So what are we saying? Either Isil Sakan live the K, Hashto. If you have the Sakan, so be Baidik the Sakan. Be the less of the Sakan Kachem Raisa. I'm happy. What does it help to have someone watch it? If we don't have the Sakan, we haven't addressed the problem with the Sakan. Zaklamar, Dilma Besalma Paguma Shachat. Zaklamar Kasha. Ein Chanami, this is a shver problem. It's very these yeah, so it's a hard, yeah, it's a hard situation. So we're stuck with what is this. So I guess they're going to have to revert, in spite of the fact that all these pshatim that we ended with a kasha, they're all going to say that it's taka talking about a cherushayt of a cotton, even though it says v'kulin sheshachtu. It's really talking about a cherushayt of a cotton in a chanami. Even though the lashon it's not much like that. That's what we have to say. That is the fourth pshat. Ravina Amar hachik tana. So Ravina says a different pshat. Hakol shaychtin. Hakol mumchen shaychtin. Anyone who's a mumcha. So a mumcha is a term of art. Rashi says mumchen v'yoydin hilcha shchita. Mumcha refers to knowledgeable about the halachas of shchita. He sat in Kailel. He learned Chullin by Daf Yomi in the morning, 35 minutes. So mumchen v'aval b'she'em muchzaken. B'lechatchila, even if they're not muchzaken, what is muchzaken? So Rashi says shereinu sheshaktu kama pam miyafa v'lei kilkul, that he is adept. Right? There's two different parts. First of all, there's knowing the rules. Then there's being adept at actually doing it. And as we're going to see, someone who's done it a number of times becomes adept, and he also not concerned that he's going to faint as he's doing it. We have like we said, one of the problems is Shia. If you pause the middle, if a guy gets it's a little woozy, he's likely to do Shia even without realizing it. So When is this said? When he knows the halachas. But if he's someone that we don't know if he's a mumcha to know the hilchas shchita, lo yishchat. Right? The second din is if he's not a mumcha. The first din is l'chatchil, he could do it if he's a mumcha, even though he's not a muhsik. But if he's not a mumcha, lo yishchat, he should shach. Shachat bait g'nei sem yedei alay mehilchas shchita. Mutar lechem mishritasek. Lav also lechem mishritasek. But so the way Rashi explains it is the norm the chashivi mumchen sheyodim bayelo hamoisem loy behem elishchet makirim bayobatkei sheyodim hilchas shchita. But that you can do it if you know from beforehand that he knows the halachas. But if he does not, if they're not aware of it, if we then check with him, then you can find that afterwards, if we check him afterwards, even if we didn't know beforehand, but you can let him check and then afterwards test it. And I think that means that that you have to be, even if he learns the hilchas shchita afterwards, and he could say, "Oh, the shchita that I did complied with these halachas." I mean, somebody's trying to say not like that. I know. So I guess the same problem like we had before. It's not really. It's not really that he could learn it afterwards. I'm sorry, I should say the Rishonim say not like that, but rather to say similar to what we said before, that we don't want to do something. Just like we said, checking the knife beforehand is b'diavad good, but not afterwards, because we're worried that you might forget to do so. Okay. Then we continue. The same problem. What is Kulin Shachtu going? Ilay ma'acher shoyte v'katan Allah kavim shachtu mi ba'ilin. Ela she'ein mumchen ba'itchin oisai. We're talking about that if he's not a mumcha ba'itchin oisai sagi, the ba'itchin oisai sagi. Why can't we ba'itchin him like we said b'di'evid? Why do you have to have oimid al gabav? So the lesser l'kamon to live the case. He's not around to check him. So that's where we say the second b'di'evid. The first b'di'evid is you check him afterwards, you find out he's good. The second b'di'evid is if he wasn't knowledgeable, we don't know if he was knowledgeable from before, so you really shouldn't have had him do it, and he did it. And now he's not around to test him afterwards, which is only b'di'evid. Good. So then, if you someone oimid al gabav, you could ask the oimid al gabav if it looked like he did it correct. Then we have a second version of Ravina's pshat, the last pshat. So this is really the sixth pshat. Amar hachiktan hakol sheichen hakol muchzaken sheichten. Everyone who's a muchzik, not a mumcha. Mumcha was, we said, someone who knew the halachas. Now we're talking about a muchzik, means someone who is known to have done the shchita beforehand without a problem. Hakol sheichten, hakol muchzaken sheichten. Muchzaken av b'sheim mumchen. Even though he's not a mumcha. But if he knows how to do it, we're not worried about the halachas. That the Gemara is going to explain that he holds that even if we don't know that he's a mumcha, right, the people who know how to do shchita probably know the halachas as well. Right? Just like from experience, you already know what the mashgiach is going to yell at you about, so you learn the halachas. So if he's a muhsik, then probably he's also a mumcha, even though you don't know that for certain. That's only where he shechted in front of us 2 or 3 times, and he didn't become faint. If he's not sufficiently muhsik that we didn't see him do it without fainting, we're worried that he's maybe going to faint. If Itaka did it b'di'evet, and he says, I know I didn't get faint. Shchitasik sherim. Chutz michei shoyte v'katan. Except for chei shoyte. Afilu di'evet nami loy. Shema yishu, shema yidushu, v'shema yachlidu. Again, b'chulin sheshachtu ahai, ilay ma'chei shoyte v'katan, alokoi, v'shachtu mibai. They're the same masuman that we said on every single one of the previous 5 pshatim. Ela she'en muchzakim. Elamai, it's going Asher Ein in this Pshat Ravina. Va'amet Babari Lisagi. I always said if he says, I'm certain that I didn't get faint, that's b'di'evet sufficient. So why are we saying it has to be someone Omer al Gabav that can attest to us that he didn't faint? The lesser command is Shiloh. We're talking about where the Shaykhet left, and therefore we have to depend on the Omer al Gabav. So these two pshat in Ravina, the first pshat is that the essential point is whether he's a mumcha, and then we can test him afterwards. And in the second pshat of Ravina, we're talking about whether he's a muhzik, that he is proficient and he doesn't get faint, so we could ask him afterwards b'di'evet. And if he's not around to ask, then we could ask the Omer al Gabav. Okay, so Ravina, both pshat and Ravina. The Rabba Bar Ula, who said the pshat of Tameh, Kabai v'Rabba v'Ravashi le'amri, they didn't say like all these pshatim of Abaya, v'Rava, and Ravashi, Mishum de Kashalu, because all of them, we ended up with a kasha on them, that it seems that the halacha is not like they came out with we said the final part of the Mishnah is not talking, seems not to be talking about Cheresh Shreit of a cotton, but it contradicts the way they understood the first pshat of the Mishnah. So in all of them, we essentially have to say, we're forced to say that Sakbal and Cheresh Shreit of a cotton, even though the Mishnah doesn't seem to be saying. The Kashalahu V'Kulan. They all have the problem that says V'Kulan in the last part of the Mishnah. Kula Karab Bar Ula Loi Amri. They all didn't say, like Rabba Bar Ula, who had said the pshat of Tumah. Right? We had the problem that we were saying that this mission is telling you Tomei b'mukdashin is good if you do it with a long knife, which Omer al Gabav. But we said in a different place. We have another mission that says that Tumah can shecht kachin. So according to the Manda, so we said two pshatim. Manda Amar that this is the main place, because over here we're talking about the halachas of shchita, and we also mentioned tumah. So we took tumah al taras hakodesh. So we also said tumah dashim. Doesn't make sense. They think that over there is really the main place, because over there it's talking about kachim. That's where we should really say the halacha that tamei can shecht kachim. Lachas daman hasamikar. And according to the man number that says no, that really over there, since it's talking about kachim, but over here, since we're talking about Tamid B'chul, we also say Tamid B'dashim. We just over here, it's just an agav Tamid B'chul and Gufalei et Shichalei, because they disagree with the psak. They don't think the others disagree with the idea that you have to say that a Tamid B'chulin has to be careful of the knife. Why? Because they don't agree with the whole concept of chulin shenasu al taras hakodesh. You have to be careful. They didn't agree with the gzeira that we said that someone who shechs al taras hakodesh, someone who normally is careful just for the times that he's going to be doing kachim, that we're going to be mechayev him to always be careful, and if he's not, it's going to be no good. We're not going to let him eat it. They don't agree with that psak. So therefore, I don't know why we have to do this so backwards. We should have just said the whole pshat is dependent on saying chul shenas al taras hakodesh is b'di'eved l'chatchila. It's l'chatchila good, but if you don't hold that to such a thing, then what do you have to say? L'chatchila, you could do it. Kulu Ravina layamri. They don't say like Ravina, who said muchzik and mumcha in the two versions. Lachash dama mumchen mumchen in she'ein mumchen loy, that they said mumchen can do it, but she'ein mumchen they can only do it b'di'eved. Roy mitzvah shechita mumchen hen. But the problem is roy mitzvah and shechita. Most people do know mumcha. So why would you say if we don't know that he's a mumcha, it's only b'di'eved? But we have a roy that most people are mumchen. Most people who do shechita at least are mumchen. That if you know that he has done it before without fainting and he's proficient, then, but if he's not, then it's b'di'eved. So the other mandomim are not concerned about the possibility that a person is going to faint. Okay. Rava le'amaka Abaya, right? Rava, right at the beginning, right? Abaya said the first pshat of Kusi, and Rava, which he said that it's talking about a Kusi who did it when he's Yaitzav and Nichnas is b'diavad, but if you're Omer al Gavav, then it's kosher. Like he had asked, Kikusha, that he has the kasha from the Shomer on the Yayin Nesach. Abaya le'amakarava, because Hasam le'naga, hachanaga. You can't compare the case of a shomer who's watching barrels of wine. It hasn't gotten to the point. You're saying you're worried that maybe he touched it. So then you don't need Ayman al Gabav. Yaitzav and Nichnas is sufficient because he hasn't yet gotten, it hasn't reached the point where, the shomer is touching it that you have to. But over here, you know that the Kusi shechted it, it's a more proximate. Rav Ashi Lamar Katravayu. Why did Rav Ashi not say like Abaya and Rava? What was Rav Ashi? Sorry, very hard to remember all the shittas. Right, we're talking about a mummer who's eating leteyavin. So Rashi Lama Shavayu Kasava Kuzum Geirayasin. He says that no, they're Bechlal not Kusim are not Yidden at all. They're not even to be careful about their own eating. So the whole pshat of Abaya and Rava falls apart. Abaya la Amakaravashi, like a Savale Hadarava. He doesn't. Abaya said that a mummer is able to shecht mummer l'teyavin because we say he's going to try to do the shchita as best as he can, as long as it doesn't cost him anything. So doing it properly is something he'll try to do. He doesn't agree with that. He doesn't hold that a mummer l'teyavin, even a mummer l'teyavin, can be trusted to do the shchita. Elo Rava, my time Elama Kishmansa, right? Rav Ashi had to use a shita of Rava's to support it. Now Rava has his own independent pshat. So why didn't Rava say like Rav Ashi? If the reason why Abaye didn't say like Rav Ashi is just because he doesn't hold to Rava, but Rava himself, why didn't he say like Rav Ashi? Rav Ashi is based on his own shita that a mummalate oven can't shet. So the Abaye come, Rava can use this shita of Abaya, but he can't. But he can say like a Rashi, but he was just saying according to you Abaya, even according to you Abaya, that you want to say it's talking about Kusim, there's a problem with your shita, so therefore you have to. He amends it slightly. Okay, I think we're gonna stop over here, and we'll continue with the Kusi, with Shita of a Kusi tomorrow. Okay. Shkayach.
Thank you. Looking forward. Yo, where's the restaurant?